everyone. I'm Howlin Steve Howell. And tonight we're hanging with the band. That's right. And we have a very special guest lined up. I've listened to this guy, I don't know, since he probably got on the scene. I don't know. But I've listened to him a long time. Anyway, you can catch all my previous podcasts on burntpossumrecords.com. And tonight we're going to be on the airwaves, basically, and we'll be rebroadcasted later. So anyways, just so you know that right up front, I want to say hi to one Chris Duarte. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Thanks for having me on here in the podcast.
Oh man, it's my pleasure and my blessing. I'm sure there's a lot of folks gonna jump on this podcast when we're done with it. Hopefully.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, that's really the plan. Man, you've been really busy. Last time I tried to get a hold of you, you were doing a recording. And boy, I understand recordings.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. The whole experience, was a good one? Did you feel good about everything that happened on the recording? Stuff like that.
Well, it was a great recording because I got to work with Dennis Herring again. And Dennis Herring produced Texas Sugar, and he also produced the Romp album. But Texas Sugar especially was a real special time. And that was my first record, really my first time with a major studio, a major label, and just getting the whole treatment, the star treatment. And it was great. And this last time, working with Dennis again, because now it's been 25 years since I've worked with Dennis, and just all the history that he's made since then.
Wow.
I mean, just finding out because when I first started working with him, he was just starting to really get his feet going and his resume padded, because he had done, the Timbuk 3 album, My Future's So Bright, or Greetings from Timbuk 3. That was the name of the album. And of course, that shot all over the place, IRS Records. It really made a name for himself. I believe it got a Grammy nomination. It really went a lot of places. And that's not how Dennis really started out. Dennis started out being a studio guitarist in LA. He came from Oxford, Mississippi, learned how to read music, practiced hours upon hours. Before he went to school, he'd get up at 5 a.m. and put in 2 to 3 hours of sight reading before he got to school. So he got to LA and quickly established himself as one of the better cats to have. And so then he started producing records, and he basically started off from the ground floor, like, what does treble mean? What does bass mean? What does mid mean? And it was wow. Hearing him tell these stories, especially how IRS got how Timbuk 3 got their contract. And it was all about, being a good person, because it really can happen. If you're a snotty snob to somebody, you could miss out on an opportunity. And that's what happened to the band that he was supposed to be there for. But Timbuk 3 ended up getting the contract because they were nice to him, and he liked what they had. Because when he got there, the other people, when he showed up, they were like something. They were much to do about something, because they were a big band starting to get going in Austin. And when he showed up and said, "Hey, I'm Dennis Herring from IR Records. I'm going to be producing your record," and they were like, "Who are you?" We expected somebody with a name. And they quickly, it was like a 30-second conversation, and they turned their back on him. But Timbuk 3 happened to be on that showcase. They were like the opening band. And they just, and so when he told the IRS guy the next day, he goes, "How was it?" And he goes, "Hey, yeah, the band was good, but I tell you what, there's this other band I think that would be better." And he explained it to him, and the guy from the president of IRS said, "Okay, sign them, we'll go." And that was it. That started off the whole his career and everything, because he had actually went in. He had somebody that he made a deal with. He was going to produce their record. They even signed a napkin, and he went into the office in Columbia, CBS Records, and the guy had the napkin, and he goes, "Look, I got this napkin. but you're not going to produce their record because look where you are. You're in this big office. Look at me. I'm somebody. You have nobody. He goes, but if you produce a record and it does well, call me back and we'll start making records. And sure enough, the record did well. He called the guy up. The guy goes, okay, well, let's start producing records. And that the part of how his career started. So just working with Dennis, the ideas he has, the way he gets tones, his musical acumen, it's just truly amazing. And now since I got to work with him again, we went into another top-notch studio with all this great vintage stuff in it, a huge Neve board, a Class A Neve board that who knows who went through it because it was at the RCA studios from 79 to 1980. So it was working like every day, and you can only guess who went through that board.
Amazing.
And that's a big thing. That's a big thing to me. Boy, I'm kind of like a board geek. The first question I ask is when I get into a studio is, what kind of board do you have? Because the tone really does, those Neve boards just have a tone. That's not to say I don't like Harrison boards or Trident boards or solid state Logic boards. Those are all great boards. But give me a A-class board any day, and I love those things. So everything was, and plus we had Jim Scott. It was his studio, and he was engineering. Jim Scott was the guy that was doing Tom Petty's stuff the last 10 years of his career, and he did all that. So Jim Scott, and just hearing the stories he had, from the 80s and the late 70s coming up, those are the guys I've kind of hung around with. I don't know a lot of the digital guys that came because when, my first two albums were taped. And then after that, it was always Pro Tools. Everything was Pro Tools, which is fine. I like Pro Tools. There's a lot of advantages to them. And there's a lot of time advantage. You can do things real quick on Pro Tools, the cut and paste applications and stuff being one. But, working with those guys that have worked with tape, that have worked with splicing tape, that have worked with old analog equipment, getting the tones, plus all the vintage gear he had there. I did my whole record on one guitar and one amp and just a couple pedals, where a lot of guys use different guitars for different tones. But this album came out really well with just using my one gold exotic guitar, Strat copy, and or the Chris Duarte model, and Sparkle Gold, and just like a mid-60s blonde Fender Bandmaster with the 212 cabinet, and just a couple of my 819 pedals from Pedal Diggers out of Japan. And that was it. That's all I had.
Oh my goodness, man! I tell you what, that was a mouthful of stuff right there. I mean, let's face it, man. You've gone through the gamut of doing a lot of recording, and I gotta give a little history, if you don't mind me indulging a little bit. It was a place called. I lived in Parkville, Kansas City for a long time, and outside of there is a place called Gladstone down Highway 45. You're going down there, and there's a big park right there with a great big stage and things like that. And I think that's the first time I saw you, which was like either I'm trying to figure it out. It's either 2007 or 2008. Would you have any memory of the Gladstone?
Was that the gig with Savoy Kim and Savoy Brown? Yeah, I remember that gig very well.
Oh man, I'm glad you do, because I'm going to tell you something, man. My wife and I we was back there about mid-level in the crowd, and it wasn't a huge crowd, but it was a good crowd.
It was just a little festival. I loved it.
But when we went there, I'd heard Savoy Brown, and I liked them okay. But I was really looking forward to listening to you after listening to, some of your recordings and stuff. And especially Headbang Tallywhack.
Tailspin Headwhack. That's it. I know that's a mouthful too.
Oh, I know. And Headspin Tallywhack. That's right. Okay. And I was listening to that, man, and I was telling Lori, I said, man, this guy's going to be in town, man. We got to go see him and stuff like that. And so we made our way out there. And man, I'm going to tell you, I've been to 7 Jimi Hendrix concerts in my life. And I tell you, that day, I don't know what it was for you. I don't know if you call that a magic time for you, but it was sure a magic time for us out in the audience because it was like you were levitating like Hendrix. You know what I'm saying? There was some licks you was pulling off. I could have swore if I closed my eyes, it was so Hendrix and feelings, but not Hendrix. You know what I mean? It had the
Right.
same vibe going on, and so yeah, that's why this conversation ends up being so important to me because I finally get to talk to the man. You know, because at the time I mean, you were pretty busy. I mean, it's just like all gigs. Guys are getting rushing off, and then you're ready to get on to the next band. So that's the way those kind of festive type things work anyway. But anyway, I mean, I was trying to look at, and then all this time, it's like I'm always following you on a computer. It's like, you can't hardly do a thing. And then finally, I got this. My wife bought me this microphone for doing podcasts, and I mean, I have a little recording studio. It's got everything in it. I mean, I got every Rode microphone you could think of, and stuff like that in it. I mean, and but I don't have any analog. No, I'm totally digital. But
That's all
anyway,
right.
I just wanted to say, man, do you remember that like that? Did you feel like you were floating across that stage yourself? Because it sure looked like it that night, brother. I'm telling you,
Well,
it was magical.
I think that was probably when I was kind of doing, I think 2007, I was trying to do that Hendrix sort of album that was kind of like a tribute towards him. We were trying to put a bunch of songs that were very Hendrixian sort of inspired.
Oh,
except for one song on there that we tried to make it Hendrixy, but we couldn't. So we just let it be what it was. But yeah, I believe that was the Infinite Energy time that I put out that album around that time. And I was thinking kind of deep into Hendrix, although, I've always been into Hendrix. I mean, Hendrix will always be one of my heroes. One of my Desert Island albums, or not Desert, but, Stranded, Islands, solo album out there. What am I trying to say is Island album is
Right. I got
is
you.
Axis Bold as Love. That is one album I would have to have. If I just had a choice of 5 albums to listen to the rest of my life, that one I could always listen to the rest of my life. On top of I wouldn't mind having a recording of the Royal Albert Hall show that Hendrix did back in 68. I think he did 67 or 68, because he was doing a lot of songs off his first record. And that show, his tone was so on. His melodic ideas were so on. You just couldn't knock him off the pole that night. And that's what I try to be like. I try to be like, how my feelings are that day. Because I mean, even though I might tell the same stories from those songs, I try to be connected to how my emotions are that day. And that was definitely one of the times I was really clicking into Hendrix and just his phrasing and his free form and just going for it. And, I really can't remember who was in the band at that time. I couldn't remember who's in the band at that time. That might have been some guys from Atlanta that day. It might have been a guy named Jeff Riley and Joseph Moore, but I'm not quite sure. Or Dustin and what's his name on drums? Damien on drums. It might have been those guys on drums. Yeah. Because I know 2006, I did an album with those guys. That was my Blue Velocity album in 2006. So yeah, it might have been Dustin Sargent. That's his name. And Damian Lewis.
So it would have been 2006. I knew it was
I think you're more right. 7 or 8, somewhere around there. And I think it was Kenny Taylor, who was also, he owned Night Moves. That was his club out there in northern Kansas, in Kansas City. It was off Vivian Road, off 29, as 35 and 29 split off, past the bridge, past the river. And he had Night Moves, and plus he was booking the talent down at the casino, that stationary casino that was technically on the river by the bridge. I can't remember the name of the casino, but it was a big casino. And he was booking it, but I believe he put on that show.
I'd like to know, I mean, I ask this question a lot, especially from, seasoned vets like yourself. It's like, okay, like I mentioned Gladstone because I know you have many other places that you've had experiences with. Do you actually, are you having the experience of the music while it's happening? Or are you closing your eyes? Are you in the other zone, that other place that you go when things are just kind of magical and flowing? And I don't know what you call it, because I think it's like you're joining the ethers for a while, or then you come back down and it's like, wow, man. I could imagine what it would have been like to be Jimi Hendrix night after night, throwing out a stellar show, being crazy on the guitar, having, 10 to 20,000 people, and then you go backstage and it's all turned off. You know what I mean? It's all.
Yeah, yeah. You switch it off when you get off the stage, and then it's like, kind of wind down time, and you decompress. Yeah, gigs like that, when they're really magical, they kind of stick with you for a while because you want to have that feeling again, and that's what you really chase. At least I chase after that. That's why I go out every night trying to play better than I did the night before, and I want to be magical. I want to be, I want the ideas just to flow, and I don't want to be just set in patterns, because you could do a gig like that if you're kind of nervous and things are kind of tight. You kind of resort to patterns, and the gig will work, but they're not that magical gig. And magical gigs for me, magical gigs are like 1 out of 20, that were magical and that everything's flowing. The ideas are coming. My hands feel great. The ideas are working. And most of the nights, though, are kind of like half and half. And that's a decent gig, But I do have those nights where it's a lot of patterns, and those are kind of dry for me.
So you being a huge fan of John Coltrane, that's the experience I'm talking about. It's like, I remember. Oh, well, it's not a remembrance anymore, because anytime I turn it on, I can go to Spotify and pick up a John Coltrane and turn it on and just get lost. And, I think, I don't know, personally, I think I'm looking for that I'm looking at as being part of the audience, because I am a player also, but being part of the audience as being, I want to join you on the stage, you know what I mean? In emotion, you know what I mean? I want to connect with you. How hard is that to get people to connect? Do you have to work hard at that, or is it just you pick up that Strat and it just blazes a trail?
No, I'm definitely not like that. I'm definitely like an old Harley. I have to be kickstarted to get going. There's very few gigs where I start off and things are happening right away. Most of the time, I have to kind of ease into the gig and start doing it, and start getting used to playing everything. But connecting with people, sometimes you can feel like you're not really connecting with them, and I can't get too far out there because I can go way out anytime. I can go way out. And sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's real musical, and sometimes it's just it's a challenge for people listening to it, for them to jump on it. And I understand that, because I remember when I saw Yngwie Malmsteen on his Rising Force tour, which I was thrilled to go see. But all the bands that were on it before, there was a band called Watchtower that was a local Austin band, but they were like a really good metal band, but they were like really heavy into odd time signatures. And so it was real difficult. And then the sound where they did the show was the Austin Coliseum, which the sound just bounced off everywhere. And then after that was this guitar player in Austin, David Spann, who at the time, he was more like being an Eric Johnson sort of guy, inspired guy. So it was a lot of notes there. And then after that, it was Talus with Billy Sheehan on bass. And I was like, I didn't know who Billy Sheehan was at the time, but I definitely noticed, who is this bass player that's taking all these solo? But, by the time Yngwie came out, I had pretty much had my fill of 64th note runs. And I hate to say it, I kind of left during Yngwie's show, because it was great. And it was, but musically, it had lost me musically. But but you can't deny who Yngwie is. Yngwie's, technique. He's one of the top guys when it comes to technique and stuff. And he's just amazing as it is. But, even I have those challenging times where I'm seeing some groups. It's hard for me to catch on, catch the train they're on. And I know for me, on some crowds, it's a little much. So I have to adjust myself on some shows. And I'm not trying to be this purist artist that's like, well, hey, man, this is me. And if you don't like it, you can leave. It's okay with me. No, I want to make it an enjoyable experience for them. I don't want them to walk out and go, wow, I mean, he's good, but, I don't know, I didn't get it. I don't want them to be like that. I want them to enjoy the show. So, I'm not at that level where I was like at this unobtainable, super, super high level where I didn't care. It was going to be about me and the music, and that's okay. And some cats can pull that off, but I'm not one of those that can do that.
Thank God. I never thought so. In your playing, that would show up. I mean, it always does.
Exactly. The crowd will start to feel uncomfortable, and no crowd wants to see a band. Like I know of band leaders that are pretty bad to their band members on stage, and that never looks good. And I'm never like that. I just want to have a good musical environment, because that's the way I'm going to be the most productive. I never go into a show being a rock star, being a diva, demanding this, demanding that. I just want to have a good, productive environment. And my mantra is always kill them with kindness when I come in.
That's beautiful.
Just be a nice guy, and everybody's going to remember you about that. Like Shakespeare said, the evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. Everybody will always remember the bad stuff about you.
Oh man, are you so true telling the story? Okay, now here's another question. I know this is kind of the lightweight question. I mean, I don't like to get lightweight questions going a whole lot, but because this is supposed to be an informant podcast, for kids that are up and coming, and they want to know about Chris Duarte's journey, and it's like, talking the music scene is part of that journey. You have to fall in love with that scene in order for that journey to be completed, So it's part of, it's kind of like you have to be a fan before you become any good on your guitar. As far as I'm concerned, you have to fall in love with something, whether it be B.B. King, whether it be Buddy Guy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix. Whoever you're in love with, that's where you should go, in your own heart, saying it with your own words. So anyway, that's my soapbox for the night, ladies and gentlemen. The rest of the night is dedicated to my new good friend Chris Duarte. Man, I'm so glad you're here, brother.
I'm thrilled to be here, Stephen. I really am.
Well, I want to play a song. I want to make sure that I got it right. Okay, My Way Down, and this is
My Way Down. This is a big hit.
This is Chris, man, and I'm telling you, listen to this guitar and listen to this playing.
Trouble that they want, coming back at me. If you said it ain't night, no women in fight. What can I do wrong? Nothing going right. All my bills unpaid, little money I paid. All that through my head would be my best first aid. My way down, my way down. The problem got fake. Things were good. Always had my place. Now that's all gone. Memories go past. Lost meaning nothing. Ain't it going by fast? Crowds getting smaller. Women ain't going dollar. All this pressure on me. Tell me why I gotta be. Don't know what I did wrong. Maybe dirty's all wrong. Right. rockin' me. Crowd skin is longer. Women ain't going under. All this pressure on me. Tell me what I gotta be. Don't know it anymore. Made my journey so long. If I put the old man on me, I did, but I'm on my way now. My way down. My way down. My way down. My way down. My way down.
Oh my way down. Oh my goodness. You see what I mean? Here, I can remember back in, I don't know whether it was 2007 or 2008, I remember a concert, and this dude just tore the stage down time and time again. And I'm not going to mention who was, well, he already did mention it, but I'm going to say, what an act to follow to begin with, man. I tell you what, brother Chris, you really tear it down on it. So what kind of strat are you playing on these days?
Now what I've got, I got the company Exotic, Xotic. I've got they make guitars and basses as well as a lot of effects. And their big pedal they make is they got the EP booster. That's supposed to be like the tone of an Echoplex. That's why it's EP. It gives that sort of tone an Echoplex puts on a guitar, and it boosts a little of the signal. It'll add a little dBs to your signal. And then also they did the AC booster and the RC booster. And I used to use those pedals. I don't use them now. I use mainly I use the EP booster on my Americana gig that I do. But they also sponsor me on guitars, and they copied my 63. Because I originally went to Fender. I wanted them to make a copy of my 63. And Fender, you know, I sat down with them in Scottsdale, and we added it all up. And the guy goes, okay, that'll be $7,500. I was like, whoa, wait. I said, no, that's the price. That's the price for the guy that comes walking in off the street. I said, I'm not asking for a free guitar. I said, I'll pay a couple thousand for this guitar, no problem. But they said, you need to get one of the head guys in an office. And I did know. I knew the head of promotion there. And he was like, oh, yeah, we'll give you the price, the artist price. But it took like, you know, they had to make an appointment where they did the laser measurements and all that with the guitar. And 6 months went by, a year went by, and Exotic then came up and said, hey, we'll make you some guitars. I said, well, you've got to make the neck exactly like my 63, because I do not want to have my hand change to another neck. I've been playing on my 63 since, you know, 94, 93. And I said, I want the same dimensions of that neck. This hand to feel just like it's on the 63. And they said, we could do that. So that's what they did. And they first gave me an ice blue, like turquoise color guitar. I played that for a while. And they said, well, we want to make a Chris Duarte look at mine. Yeah. And now that I probably had that guitar when you saw me play, because I've been with them for a while, probably close to 12 or 15 years. And now the gold sparkle guitar is known as the Chris Duarte model. And you can tell it's my model because the headstocks are always the same color, just like the old 60s Fender guitars. So that's how you can tell if it's a Chris Duarte model. The headstock is always the same color.
That's fantastic. What a working relationship to develop. I was on the other end of Fender. I got sued by him.
My God.
I have a CNC, and I have all the old specs on everything, you know. And so I was building mainly I was building a 52 Telly and mainly like a 62 Strat, and I kept copying that and copying until there was like 73 of us that got sued by them. And they lost only because they had when they went to CBS, their patent had lapsed, and they let it go, and that's what got me off the hook. The only thing that we can't do is come back and replicate a neck and put fender on it. You know, I mean, you can't.
Right.
That's the only thing you cannot do. They will come after you again. You know, I mean, they spent a lot of money trying to come after us small timers. You know,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you get the C&D letter, you know, cease and desist. Yeah, you can't have the dimensions cannot be the exact as a Strat. It cannot be the exact headstock, you know, and plus, it can't have the fender sticker on it, of course. But yeah, I mean, they go after it. I mean, I understand why they do, but you know, it's just a classic, timeless design, you know.
Well, you know, I mean, like I said, the patent had run out, so I didn't break any laws, and I did do the exact specs that were that they actually put it out in their fender books. Actually, you know, if you look through your fender books at different colors and models and stuff,
right, exactly.
Down at the bottom they'll have schematics. It's about this big, and it's Freddie Taruse that's signed on it.
Right.
I mean, he was the guy that created the 1954 Stratocaster.
Yeah.
You know, so why wouldn't you want to? You know, yeah. So I blew that up, blew it up, and so it wasn't against the law actually, because I actually paid for the schematic by buying it when I bought the book. I paid for the schematic, so there was nothing really wrong. And you know, and I made a lot of people in Germany happy. You know, it was pretty cool. You know, it was
definitely.
It was a cool time in my life. So you know, do you have a protege, somebody that is following in your footsteps, that you train, that you talk to, that?
Well, not that I trained. I mean, there was a kid here in Austin, Ian Moore. Ian Moore used to come out and see me a bunch. Ian Moore has gone on to make a name for himself. Very fine guitar. Yeah. In fact, he was more like the guitar hero when he first started out. Now he's more like on the singer-songwriter stuff. And he does a few gigs where he does electric and he gets it. But, you know, Ian pretty much is like sort of like my style and my rhythmic things that I was doing.
Oh man.
There's another guy out in Hawaii, Vince Esquire, that will cite me. Mateau from Indigenous. He cites me as his favorite guitar player. He loves my playing, and I'm sure he'll cop up to a many licks that he's stolen from me and just my style and stuff like that. And I mean, he'll be the first to admit it. In fact, I just did a gig with him about 3 weeks ago up in a casino in South Dakota. So it's great to see him. And he announced it. He just goes, now I'd like to get my favorite guitar player of all time up on stage with me, Chris Duarte, you know. And I mean, Texas Sugar really was a special album, and it really came at about the right time because there was that big hole left by Stevie when he passed. And I mean, I came out just a little bit before Kenny Wayne, and Kenny Wayne's a fine guitar player. I like Kenny a lot. You know, I've known Kenny for a long time, but Kenny's just starting to develop his own style. But back then he was pretty much a Stevie kind of guy. And I used to say, I like it, but I'm just waiting for Kenny to come, you know, because if I want to listen to Stevie, I'll put on Stevie stuff. Cause I mean, Stevie, cause I used to listen, me being in Austin and I moved here in 79, there was like all kinds of bootleg Stevie tapes rolling around town. And we used to always listen to those tapes, you know, the show that they turned into an album in the beginning, which we called the Steamboat tape, was a show from Steamboat, the club Steamboat. All the guitar players had that tape, the full show, because it was broadcast on the radio, the public radio station, at the time. So we all had that tape. There was another tape that he went into the NPR studios and just on Paul Ray's Twine Time, and Stevie did a Monday night show for 2 hours. And it's just an amazing show. And plus I saw Stevie in the clubs a few times before he was a big star, and just watching the sheer raw power of Stevie, you know, in a small club when there's only like 50 people in there, it was just truly amazing. You know what's amazing about Stevie, you know, I got to actually hold and play one of his guitars, Whitey. Anyway, Whitey, and man, his strings are like a mile high off the fretboard. I mean, I don't know, man. It seemed like a lot of strain on the neck, but man, I tell you what, I don't know how he did it. I'm telling you, man, it's a good quarter inch off the neck board at the 12th fret, probably. You know. Yeah, that's some That's like a man's guitar, because I mean, I knew Smokin' Joe Kubik really well, and Smokin' Joe and Stevie came up. They were all friends and stuff. And when I was living in Atlanta, I went down to see Smokin' Joe. He was playing at Blind Willie's, and I went down. And right when I stepped in the show, the door's right by the stage. Joe just takes his guitar off and hands it to me, just hands it down to me. So I got up and say, and sure enough, Joe's strings were like quarter inch off the neck, really heavy gauge. And I was like, this is a man's guitar here. And I struggled to play that thing. And I told him, I said, this is a man's guitar, Smokin' Joe. This is a beast to play. Yeah, I'd say I wasn't at my top form that night, but I mean, there's reasons guys kept it that high. But the real fact is, though, near the end of Stevie's career, he had gone to lighter strings because, your hands can't take that type of punishment, playing every couple weeks, me too. I mean, I have to get myself in gig shape, and I don't change the gauge, but when you're playing that heavy of strings and that high, you have to be playing pretty much 5 nights a week to every night a week, to stay on top of that. And Stevie was that busy back in the day, because I remember in Austin, he played every Tuesday down at a place called the Rome Inn, and then every Thursday he played the Continental Club, and those are the nights I saw him play. And it was truly amazing. That's when when he had Tommy and Chris in the band back then.
Wow, yeah. So, okay, now you're from originally from San Antonio.
Yeah, I am.
Were you part of a music scene there for a while? I mean,
no, I just started playing guitar maybe about 1 or 2 years before I moved to Austin, Texas. And I moved to Austin because even in high school, people would talk about Austin being a music town. All the better groups just came there to Austin on their tours. And then I heard they had a bunch of clubs and a lot of musicians. And so that's why I moved. I dropped out of high school and moved to Austin, Texas, and started really working on the guitar, practicing a lot, started to learn how to read, started to learn how to play. I got my first real book when I was, 18 years old. No, I was 17 when I got my first real book. That's when you had to be, kind of surreptitious getting it. You had to kind of ask for it under your breath because they were illegal at the time. Because you had to find the music stores that were selling them, because they sold them under the counter. And because that, and then I took a few jazz lessons back then, and then I got in my first group, a blues group. Well, actually, my first group was a jazz group, and I couldn't play jazz to save my life, but I could read the chord charts, and we'd have our real books, and we'd be doing all the standard and stuff. And then when it looked like they didn't like me flipping through, they'd have a set list, and then they'd change something. I had to be flipping through my music. And the band leader didn't like that because I was taking like a few seconds to get my charts up. And so I ended up, we always did the same 50 or 60 songs. So I ended up memorizing all the tunes, all the charts.
Yeah, good
so
for
it's
you.
like, whatever you call, I'm ready to go. I know the chords. Back when I had that kind of brain, back in the day when it was young and they could absorb all that information and hold on to it. But yeah, I mean, and then I got my first blues group, Bobby Mack and Night Train, when I was 18, and we started touring Texas and getting out of state a little. And the rest is history, as they say.
Oh my goodness! Wow, what a story! I mean, you could almost write a book. About I mean, you could almost write a book about your experiences of where you've been and how the places you've been, and talking about your gear, talking about all kinds of things that sets up a music. I don't know, man. It's just something I like to say to people that really spark an interest, that really have a depth of knowledge, especially in a recording business, man. You forgot more than most people ever know. I've been very fortunate to have been in a number of studios, very fortunate to have worked with a lot of really good producers, and very fortunate to have shared the stage with a lot of my musical idols, people I would have never thought I would be playing with. I mean, if you had told me back when I was 13 and I'm there at a Ted Nugent show,
oh, you're going to be on stage playing with Ted Nugent in the future, I would have thought they were crazy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
sure enough, and I'm in my early 30s. There I am with Ted Nugent on stage singing the rhythm part. Yeah, I mean the melody, the harmony melody when he starts singing on Stranglehold. Come on, come on. And I'd always tell Ted, he go, "What song do you want to play, Chris?" I said, "Come on, Ted, Stranglehold. Let's play Stranglehold."
That's fantastic. Hey, let's segue into another song I want to play another song before we go.
Sure.
I like this one. I just really like this one, especially the name of it is called Cleopatra. And
oh yeah.
He likens the person in this story to Cleopatra.
I'll tell you the story about this song after we listen to it.
All right, I'll try to get it going.
Well, you got a live version of it.
Yeah. Always go live.
Yeah.
Child, you say it's your fortune, that kind that drives the fella's wild. So are you Cleopatra? Yeah, but it was one mistake. Look down at the flow, for power is all yours to take. Attracted to power, the men today all the same. When your beauty is gone, are you gonna be all alone? Yo, yo. Yo. did last. You say it's your fortune that got me trust fellas wild. So are you greedy and passion? Your pretty was one mistake. Look down at your feet, for I'm the one they call snake. When your beauty is gone, are you gonna be alone? Whoa, Theo.
Yep.
Theo. Theo. Theo.
There we go.
Wow. Oh my goodness, Chris Duarte. Now you see why we feel like he's levitating off the stage, man, because I just listened to that. Man, you hear some screams, some oinks, and some all kinds of stuff on that guitar, on those guitar solos, man. I'm telling you, that's a brilliant piece of work. I mean, let's face it, it's John Coltrane via Chris Duarte.
Like, yeah. Well, it's just, trying to manipulate all the tones that a Stratocaster can do. And that's the main reason I play a Strat, because you have 5 tonal varieties you can mess with, and then on top of it, all the things you can do with your hands. I always tell people that, they're on that holy grail search for that pedal, that perfect pedal. And I tell them, that's why I call it a holy grail search. It's just a thing in your mind.
Oh, man.
It starts with your hands. It's here's where your tone is. It's in your hands, and that's how you manipulate the strings and attack it. And you can hear me changing the pickup selector around, getting those different tones and stuff. And that little introduction that I do, because the studio version, it just starts with the cowbell going clunk, 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 bum, ba-da, bum, and that was like an intro I wrote for live audiences and stuff. But yeah, it's nice to hear that. And that sounds like it's probably like probably mid 2000s, like probably around 2007, 2008. I was trying to think. Yeah. I'm thinking, and listening to who was singing harmony on there. I wonder. I don't think it was Robert Kearns, because for a while there I had Cry Love's rhythm section with me. I had Jason Patterson on drums and Robert Kearns on bass, who Robert Kearns has been playing with Sheryl Crow for the past 10, 12 years now. He's still playing with her, playing bass with her. But they were a great band. And it's really nice to hear that. And plus the My Way Down, that was a live version too. The story behind the song is, I was going to say this, if that was the studio version was when we first handed in the tapes, because we had gone off and recorded with David Z, was our producer. And David Z at the time was doing really well. He had produced Kenny Wayne's first record, The Ledbetter Heights or whatever, that album. And he did Johnny Lang's first record, you know, the one with Cry, you know, Lie to Me.
Yeah,
and so David Z played with Prince. He was the keyboard player in Prince's band's Revolution. And so David Z was really, he was like had the Midas touch when anything he was doing was pretty much turned to gold. And he did the same. But when we handed in the masters to the record company, it was the classic line, well, we don't hear a single. So they sent me to Toronto to work with Gordie Johnson, who was playing in a band called Big Sugar that was doing real well in Canada. They were and so we went in the studio, went into Triumph studio, that band Triumph. It was their studio, and they had a nice old Neve board there. And the name of the studio was Metalworks. And we recorded there, and it was very raw sounding, the studio. And we did Cleopatra, Catch Next Line, and Thrill Is Gone. We did those. And Cleopatra turned out being the single for Tailspin Headwack, the second album.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. I remember that on that album. Wow.
But that song was written by Junior Medlow, and then I put my little twist on. That's why if you look at the credits, it says Michael Williams and Chris Duarte on it, because there was some things that I changed on it.
So if you were to give advice to someone just starting out, they got their first guitar, they've learned 3 or 4 songs, and they're starting to put together a band, and they starting on this journey, what words would you have to say to that individual?
Well, first, I'd like to, what are their goals? Do they just want to sit around their house and play for their own enjoyment? Do they want to, sit around and play with some friends, start a little band in the garage, do that? Or do they want world domination? They want to really make a mark on music. If they want to sit around and just have some fun, I'd say if they're a Beatle fan, go get a Beatles book. Beatles book will teach you the chords, because the chords will be right over the words. It's real easy to start playing Beatles songs. If they want world domination, I'd say you're going to learn how to pick properly, learn your major and minor scales, and get a metronome and start working with the metronome. And after that, if they want to come back to me, then I'd start saying, now we're going to start working on your triads and your 7th extensions. And let's learn those scales and the chords that relate to it and stuff like that. And the natural minor keys, the 6. And we'll start working there. That's plenty of room to keep them working. For if they're a very studious student, I'd say that'll keep them really busy for a solid 6 months to a year. Easy.
Where you're at now, right where you sit, obviously, is there a grind to it, or do you just grit your teeth and say, I'm going to the top of the mountain, I'm gonna play. I really enjoy performing for people. It really turns me on when someone is actually dancing to something that I wrote. Stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
How do you feel about all that? Where's your heart at in that?
My heart, of course, is I want to write a good song that does fairly well on the radio, because that's going to bring in some money. That's going to help you to ensure, keeping your musical, ambitions going. You won't be starving, because I've been a professional musician. This has been my only job since 1994 when I quit my job. And this is all I did. I stayed at home and I worked at it, practiced, worked at it, and started playing gigs. Of course, my wife had a job too that supplemented the meager income that I had at first. But, sure. When right before the album Texas Sugar came out, I've been a professional musician since that time, and I've never had any other job. I did have one job when I lived in New Hampshire, because I was caught in the throes of substance abuse, and I'd lost a lot of equipment, and I moved up to New Hampshire to get away from it all. Geographical relocation, which doesn't always work, which it didn't work, but anyway, it did help me get started again, and sort of I reinvested myself in my career. And, and that's before I even had, that's still before I even had an album. That was like
That's a
in
great word.
92. Yeah. I reinvest myself, in myself. But I mean, I want people to dance. I want people to enjoy my music. I want it to be successful, and I want to write that song successful. And I do have a little bit of a track record. I mean, even though it's 15 albums ago, but My Way Down, still it's the main breadwinner. When the royalty checks come, it's because of that song. That's what I want to do. This is all I want to do is play music and go out. And it's a life you got to want, because it's very tough. I mean, people think we get out on the road and it's just one nonstop party. That's not it at all. It's work. You get behind the wheel, you get up and you drive. You can drive anywhere from 3 hours to 8 hours, to get to your next gig. You have to get out there and you have to play good, because you can't get out there and mow, So what if you have 4 people come out? You can't get out there and go, well, there's only 4 people. I'm just going to kind of mow the lawn tonight. No, that's what kills me when I see young musicians these days. I go into a club and they're like sitting on the ramp. They're kind of tired and they're playing tired. It's like, do you know what my mind was like when I was your age? I couldn't wait to get on the stage and play. You have to apply yourself every single night. And sure, it gets frustrating, and I have terrible gigs, awful gigs, because I just get too tightly wound up. I'm trying too hard, and I have to remember to relax and let it flow. But sometimes it just doesn't work, and you end up having a horrible night.
Right.
I still have horrible nights, but that's just part of the life, and and you play hard. Sometimes you get very few hours of sleep on the road. My motto has always been, the more famous you get, the less sleep you get. That's all there is to it.
That's
because
true.
Because when you get in a studio and you record the album and you think that's the work, no, the work starts when the album comes out.
Right.
And then you are really working, because you were doing all those promotion gigs. I mean, I've done wacky promotions. I've played on loading docks for electronic warehouse stores that are opening up for grand openings. I've played in a Hooters parking lot for their breakfast shift, like starting at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. You have to play, and you have to play like you're there. You have to be there. You just can't just get up and just do whatever. I've played in malls, shopping malls, promoting albums. You give them a list of equipment that you need to play your gig, and they show up with all the wrong equipment. You can't go, hey, I can't play under these conditions. No, you got to get up and make it work. It's a tough job, and you get burnt out, and a lot of cats do get burnt out. But I truly love my job. I love meeting other people. I love seeing the United States.
Awesome.
I mean, you think it's great when you start getting onto planes and traveling by planes. No, that's even harder, because you got to check in your equipment. You're sitting around waiting ever since 9/11. You can't rush to the airport and get there 30 minutes before the plane leaves. You got to be there hours ahead of a plane now.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me, there were days before 9/11, I could get there with my amp and get it thrown on the plane like an hour before the plane left, and was able to, throw a 20 to the sky cap, and that amp would get on the plane, and we'd rush to the gate and get in the gate. Those days are long gone. So you have to be at the airport. You're using up almost 3 to 4 hours just being at the airport before you get on the plane, and then you're in a tube, you're cramped, because I'm not flying first class. Hell no. I'm in the cattle car back, and if you get in the middle seat, whoa, but I just truly love my job. I still love this job, and
fantastic.
Even the hotels, still, I'm not at a level where every hotel is a very nice hotel. No, I have mainly, I'd say 3 out of 5 hotels are kind of funky hotels, but it's the way it goes. It's because I get to get on stage and I get a few hours to create, and that's what I do it for.
That's cool. That you just made the whole show, man. I mean, it's like, I've been trying to dig this out of people for ages, and you just explained it right down to the T, brother. just, I mean, wow, that's pretty amazing story. Like I said, it's like sometimes I think about, man, sometimes I want to write the book about myself, a nobody that went nowhere and also went somewhere. I mean, because I've shared the stage with some pretty big names in my life, and it's like, how did it happen? I don't know. I mean, really, I really don't know. One thing led to another, another led to another. I think the key to success in the music business is genuinely, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being kind. There's nothing wrong with being nice. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with sharing. Sharing the world with somebody that maybe is up and coming. Maybe he's over the hill. Maybe he's in between. But you're there still to love on that guy because he's part of the business. That's part of the way this whole.
Yeah.
That's the way this world goes around, and that's what makes the world. And, when they talk about God is love and love and love and love, the thing is, that is true love, is when you put yourself down and start reaching out to somebody else and giving back to them, that's when you're really showing true love. And especially in this business of music, you have to love it to stay. I mean, I've been trying to retire since 2012. And I can't let go. I mean, I just can't. And another song come up, and here I am back recording. Next thing you know, I want to be on stage somewhere. I don't care if it's a tiny little cafe with 10 people watching. I don't care. I just, I mean, those moments come and they're magical. And so I share that with you. I mean, I share that as you begin to explain it. It's like, man, I've tried. 56 guys before you, I've asked that same question. Man, you just went down the road. So you people that are listening to this, that you're going into the music business, listen to what Chris just had to say. If it doesn't spark something in you to either drive harder or to be nicer or to whatever it takes to be better on your instrument, whatever it takes, go for it. You should go for it. No matter what, go for it. There's nothing wrong with doing something. No one wants you to do anything half-assed. They want you to go full bore at it. Just like you said, when you show up at a gig, give it your all. It might not be your best performance. It might not be the best thing that you ever did in your life, but still go forth and do it. I mean, that's part of the growing I think we all go through. And listen, as long as you've been in the business, man, I could hear you saying the same thing. You're just trying to be better. You're trying to always do something, it's just a little bit better. And the reason why you do that is because it's inside you to do it. It's because you're like something out there in the long range of the universe said, hey, Chris, man, don't you notice that guitar over there? You go, yeah, man, I noticed that. Don't you want to learn how to play it? It's like all these questions come. That's what I remember. And that's the weird thing about, taking and analyzing anything like this, because, we all think it came from us, and it really doesn't. It comes from other places, other planets. Yeah. And we only so few and rare times get to really see that while we're on stage. So, that's a hard one. My brother Chris, man, you have blessed me with your music over the years. Man, your guitar playing, no, man, I'm telling you, it just, I gives me chills to hear it all over again. It's kind of like when I went back and listened to Kinsey Report. I love them. I love them guys.
Yeah, man, those guys are great. I know all of them. I love them to death, man.
Yeah, I've eaten dinner with those guys. I know them real well. In fact, I've had Kenny on the show, and anyway, I got invited to be on stage with them one night, and that was like, I could go on and on how I felt about. I was scared to death, boy, but it was a blast. But anyway, man, like I said, many happy trails to you. Keep producing all that good music that you do, and I know you love it, man. It shows, man. You tear that guitar up, especially when you're live. I love playing your live stuff more than I do your studio albums. But I'm that kind of guy. I'm the same way with Grateful Dead. I could care less about their studio. Warren Haynes, I could care less what he did in the studio. I could go on, name guys. But when they go live, there's just something very special. And listen, Chris, where are you going to be next, or what's the biggest? I mean, what's coming up?
Well, the next couple of shows, I have some shows around Austin here and there. I do have a show. Let me pick up my phone and go with me here. And just my calendar is right here, actually. And see, I've got a couple shows like over, let's see, what do I got here? What do I have in September? Oh, I've got a tour coming up. Let's see, in July. No, we're in July. God, what am I thinking?
Yeah,
From soon.
We're mid-July, brother.
I play like every Wednesday and Thursday. I play downtown at this club on 6th Street called the Lit Lounge. It's a very small gig, very small club, but it reminds me of the old the John Coltrane when he did a stint with Thelonious Monk at the 5 spot. It was like he played there for like 3 or 4 months, straight. And that was like a gig. He really dug in and worked on his chops. And that's what I use this gig for, is I'm able to play anything and whatever I want. And I'm really working on my chops. So you never know what you're going to see me play on those. And that's every Wednesday and Thursday from like 10 to 2 down on 6th Street. I do have a gig with my girlfriend, Beth Lee, who actually helped me write a bunch of the songs on my new album that should be out in probably somewhere between September and November. The album will be out. And that's going to be called I Ain't Giving Up is going to be the name of the new album, because I ain't giving up. I've got another gig down at the Little Longhorn. That's the 29th of July. That's actually going to go out on the internet. It'll be streamed, the first set, I know. And that's July 29th. You can look that up at the Little Longhorn, www.littlelonghorn. Just punch in Little Longhorn and you'll see it. I've got another gig at the Baja Ice House. That's another gig like out in the outskirts of town. And then I have, August, I have a lot of gigs with Beth. I got the 5th, the 12th, and the 13th, all with Beth Lee. You can just go to, and then I have a Monday night stand at a club called Friends down on 6th Street. I play 11 to 2. I have Tom Breckline on drums. Tom Breckline only played with Robin Ford during the Thin Blue Line years. And he played with Wayne Shorter, Chick Corea. I mean, he's world-class talent on the drums. I feel so honored when he plays drums with me. His meter is so good. It's like skating on ice. I love it. If I have one big complaint about new drummers coming up, they rush too much. You're playing with a drummer that rushes. By the end of the night, you're exhausted because you start having to start the songs off slow, so it's a manageable tempo by the end of the song. But yeah, it's really tough. Guys got to work with the metronome. You guys have to work with the metronome. I'll be in Hawaii for a festival the first weekend of September, the 2nd or 3rd. I believe on the 3rd is when I play in Maui, September 3rd. And that's going to be, he just sent me, but it's a festival in Maui in September. It'd be easy to look up. That's with Vince Esquire, the protege I told you about. In fact, I'll be on his podcast probably next week sometime. He's got a podcast. I'll be on that. And so I'll be in Hawaii. And
you have a website that has all this information on it, right?
Yes, you can go to Duarte, Duarte, .rocks, ROCKS. Yes, there is a .rocks out there. Duarte.rocks. It's out there, and that has my schedule out there.
All right, folks, listen. It's one thing to listen to him on Spotify. It's one thing to, listen to his records. It's one thing to listen to his live recordings.
Yeah, YouTube and stuff like that. I'm all over YouTube.
But to see him live, folks, that's why I was mentioning that. Because if you're around any of that in Austin or anywhere in Hawaii at the time, man, check it out. Man, I tell you what, closest thing I know to Hendrix is right here, as far as stage presence, as far as his guitar prowess, as far as connection with people that are there. Let's face it, I give him all the kudos. And I did want to mention one more thing before I go. It's no wonder he was on the Guitar Player Readers Poll, and I want to say something here because this is amazing. First was Eric Clapton, second was Buddy Guy, third was B.B. King, and then our man Chris Duarte. Wow. what names to be mentioned with in a Guitar Player's magazine, which I've always been subscribed to.
Yeah, that was Guitar World magazine day, and then I won the Guitar Player magazine readers poll in 1995 for best new talent. And all the people that have won that award, Yngwie Malmsteen, Eddie Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, those guys won that same award, and so I feel very blessed to be in that company.
Oh my goodness, Chris. Well, like I said, I never have enough time to talk to folks of your caliber. I want to just go on all night long, but I know you got other things to do, and I know I got to get going too. And man, I tell you what, everybody, you've been hanging with the band, and we've had Chris Duarte on here. Man, we have a lot to be thankful for with the knowledge that he poured out tonight. And anyway, I'm going to play this heading out. This is Howlin, Steve Howell, your host for the BurntPossumRecords.com podcast. And I want to thank you all for listening. It's such a pleasure to know that there's good responses happening out there, and that we recovered after the computer debacle, and everything seems like it's gone back to normal. And after all, I got to talk to Chris Duarte tonight, and what a blessing. What a man, what a player, what a human being. And one thing I want to leave you with, there's nothing wrong with being kind. The whole world needs love right now. I mean, everybody. Everything just seems so out of control. Listen, people, love one another. Practice it. It's a good thing. Let that guy in the lane when he wants in. He got his turn signal on. You're watching it. And you're staying in his way. Get out of the way. Let him go by. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, just know that I love you. This is BurntPossumRecords.com at Burnt Possum Records Studio. And we're signing out. Good night.